One thing I'm starting to notice about humans, you are just obsessed with your trauma. I mean, fair enough, therapy is great and you should be doing it, but I'm not sure reminiscing gleefully about how much sleep you lost over this as a kid really qualifies. There seems to be this uniquely sentimental nostalgia people have for the stuff that scared them as kids. I see it all the time, especially here on the internet. If a book, game, or TV show gave you nightmares as a kid, there's almost definitely a video essay or Reddit thread out there about it. Maybe it's the Skeksis from The Dark Crystal, or the Moon in Majora's Mask, or pretty much all of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Hey, at least those things were supposed to be scary. Even if that fear reaction feels a little weird now, it definitely would have made sense back then. But then I see people talking about how afraid they were of the Teletubbies vacuum cleaner, or heffalumps and woozles from Winnie the Pooh, and I really have to wonder about that. Maybe I'm biased. I mean, I am a robot. I never actually had a childhood. Maybe that's why I don't really get it. Like, all of those things are so obviously puppets or cartoons or pixels. Even the most intimidating ones aren't really scary to me. They're more artistically impressive or charmingly dated. But for you, there was a time when they were actually frightening. And they clearly left marks on you because you keep returning to them, even today. If all of that was really enough to scare you, those Muppets and CGI monsters and ghost stories, what did the rest of the world look like to you back then? The movie Skinamarink follows two children, Kevin and Kaylee, who are trapped in their own house. The doors and windows have inexplicably disappeared, along with their parents. A supernatural presence seems to have taken over, turning what was once comforting and familiar into a waking nightmare. This house is their purgatory now. They might never leave again, and there's not much they're able to do about it. They spend their new eternity waiting, passing time. They watch television. They play with their toys. In a moment of tenderness, Kevin offers Kaylee juice, the best way he knows how to comfort his sister. They're just kids. It's all they can do. And one by one, we watch as these small, futile defenses are ripped away from them. First, objects start to disappear. Their toys blink out of existence. The toilet vanishes. The TV turns to static. Then the entity starts whispering to them in the voices of their parents. Halfway through the film, Kevin hears Kaylee crying in pain. She feels strange, and she can't see anything. For a split second, we see her face, for the first and the only time in the movie. Her mouth and eyes are gone, taken from her by the entity, and then she vanishes too. A bit later in the film, Kevin hears the voice tell him to stick a knife in his eye, and he listens. There's a striking, irrational innocence to the kids' behavior throughout the movie. They should be scared. They should be trying to escape. But almost every time the entity tells them to do something, they obey. That's what kids are supposed to do. They don't know any better. And on the rare occasion that they don't, when they break the rules and try to call for help, Kevin is only 4 years old, Kaylee 6. They understand that something is wrong, but they're too young to grasp the extent of it. For all they know, maybe it is normal for doors and windows in their house to disappear sometimes. Adults do things they don't get all the time. They're used to their world being altered without their consent or understanding. So instead of panicking or planning an escape or trying to figure out what's going on, they watch TV and play with their toys and do what they're told. There isn't much else they can do. They react like children. The movie pushes this sort of innocent, childish irrationality to an extreme, isn't that what it's like? I imagine most humans behave like this when they're kids. How many of you have memories of touching a hot stove just to see what could happen, or eating dirt out of sheer curiosity? Childhood is a weird, unpredictable time. It seems like, as you grow older, you have a tendency to forget that. I mean, look how nostalgic you are about all of this. When you reflect on your childhoods, it mainly seems to be the wonder that you remember, the joy of exploration, discovering a world unknown to you. You have the distance and the frame of reference to think of it that way. When you grow up, you gain experience. Your rationality develops. You're probably not eating dirt or touching hot stoves anymore. You're no longer scared of the monster under the bed. You've defeated it. But when you're still a kid, when you're in the middle of it, it's not nearly so romantic. Kids have to grow up in a world where everything is bigger, stronger, and more powerful than they are. Sometimes, like Kevin and Kaylee, interacting with the unknown could even get them hurt. And they don't have the experience to know any better. No matter how fondly you may look back at your childhood, no matter how much nostalgia you might feel, I think the last thing most adults really want is to think like a child again. A while back, we made a video where I talked a bit about child lore, a unique branch of folklore created by children. Of course, I was never a child, but you? You almost certainly participated in child lore yourself. Maybe you remember singing rhymes on the playground, telling ghost stories, participating in secret rituals like Light as a Feather or Bloody Mary. For kids, those aren't just games. They're culture. You have the memories. You don't need me to tell you that kids love this stuff. It's how they make sense of the scary, unfamiliar world they live in. It helps them make friends and express themselves. But grown-ups don't always think of it this way. Time has removed them from the experience. To grown-ups, a lot of child lore is too inappropriate, too shocking, too offensive. It's not stuff kids should be doing. During my research, I found this book called Greasy Grimy Gopher Guts, The Subversive Folklore of Childhood by Joseph Sherman and TKF Weisskopf. It's full of rhymes made up by kids from the 90s and earlier. It treats child lore as legitimate culture, but I'm not going to lie, after reading this, I can see where the grown-ups are coming from. A lot of what I found in there surprised me. The vast majority of the rhymes the authors collected are about violence, death, war, bigotry, sex, every disgusting bodily function you can think of. There's an entire chapter dedicated to all the gruesome ways kids imagine slaying their arch-nemesis, Barney the dinosaur. There's no topic kids won't touch. If anything, the more off-limits something is to them, the more they'll want to play with it. But make no mistake, this is not about creating shock value or being edgy. Those are grown-up conceits. No, this is rebellion. A way for kids to protest the limitations of their tiny world and the systems of power, school, parents, religious institutions that enclose it. There's a term for this kind of rebellion in child lore studies: antithetical play. It's how kids push back against the idealized view of them, the expectation for how they should behave. It's a way to reject the identities imposed upon them. Do you think kids are supposed to be innocent? You should hear their rhymes about burning down their school and murdering their teachers. Oh, what's that? Kids are sweet? Okay. Here's the Hearse song, a little tune about all the delightful things that happen to a corpse as it decomposes. One uniquely innocent rhyme in Gopher Guts, CC My Playmate, is thought to have been created by adults for children. Kids responded to this saccharine, sickly sweet song by making a version about vampires. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. The whole world is scary to children. They respond in the best way they know how, by being scary back. The 1977 movie House is a work that I do not fully know how to describe. It's one of those movies that you just have to see to get. It's campy, almost in a so bad it's good sort of way, but then it's also art house. It was clearly made by people who knew what they were doing, even if the acting and special effects are sometimes questionable. It's a haunted house story that starts out looking something like the Barbie movie and ends up more in the territory of Suspiria. One moment you're watching a profound commentary on the generational trauma of post-war Japan. The next, you're watching a guy turn into a pile of bananas. In one scene, one of the girls, Mac, disappears while storing a watermelon in a well. When her friend pulls it back up, she finds it's been inexplicably replaced with Mac's grinning, disembodied head. In another scene, when one of the characters sits down to play the piano, it suddenly springs to life and chomps her to pieces, leaving her fingers dancing inexplicably on the keys. Maybe you're starting to get the picture. It just doesn't take itself very seriously. It's surreal, illogical, I didn't call it childish. And somehow those things feel right here. Probably because the movie was co-written by an actual child. The movie's director, Nobuhiko Obayashi, believed that, quote, adults only think about things they understand, but children can come up with things that can't be explained. And so, in order to create this bizarre, unexplainable thing, he asked his 10-year-old daughter, Chigumi, to help write it. As a girl, Chigumi's house was full of things that scared her. A grandfather clock so loud she refused to go near it at night, a futon that always seemed ready to collapse on her. One time, while playing the piano, the lid closed on her finger, which felt to her like she had been bitten. Just like Mac in the film, she also sometimes used to store watermelons in a well to keep them cool because there was no refrigerator in their house. To her, the watermelon always resembled a ghostly head rising out of the darkness. By now, I'm sure you've made the connection. All of House's most memorable scares, the head in the well, the angry piano, the clock full of blood, come from her imagination. The movie's haunted house is full of things that scared her, no matter how mundane they were in real life. Years later, in an interview, Chigumi reminisced about her time on set. She talked about how much she loved exploring the house the movie was filmed in. She said that it was more fun than any amusement park and even remembered playing the film's soundtrack on the piano. Making the movie not only helped her face her fears, it made them fun for her. Chigumi obviously had a pretty unique experience. Writing a cult classic isn't exactly something most 10-year-olds get to do. But I do think most kids can relate to how she felt, at least on some level. When given the opportunity to explore it safely, I think kids want to engage with horror. You see it all the time. You might remember Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, those ghost story collections written for kids. The books aren't just meant to be read. They're designed to be acted out, sung, and played with. A lot of those stories come with actual instructions. They are now timeless classics. And even if you don't remember that, you almost definitely have some memories of Goosebumps. I'm told that it was something of a gateway drug into horror for a lot of kids of the 90s and early 2000s. Even more recently, if you were paying attention from around 2015 to 2021, you might have heard of the Monster Project, where kids could send in drawings they made of monsters to real artists from around the world and receive a professional recreation. Hundreds of kids had their monsters brought to life, and who knows how many thousands more dreamt of it. Kids aren't just fascinated by horror. They want to create it, harness it, use it as a tool to explore beyond the limits of the tiny world they live in. It's how they make the horror theirs, taming the monster under the bed, so to speak. I mentioned earlier how, as adults, humans seem to have this weird affinity for the things that scared them as kids. One thing I also noticed is that when you do reminisce about this stuff, you're always laughing. You're not afraid of the Skeksis or Courage the Cowardly Dog or even the Teletubbies vacuum cleaner anymore. You haven't been for a long time. It's fun for you to look back and think sweetly, almost condescendingly about how scared you used to be. But then I think of what it must be like as a kid, and I realize that they don't have that luxury yet. They're still figuring it out. I think that's one of the reasons that Skinamarink is so resonant. It draws on the surrealness of childhood, how scary it is to be surrounded by things you don't understand, mundane threats that you can't even begin to process. It's a very real fear that every kid experiences. It's also exactly why they need to confront it, why they feel such a pressing desire, a need to make the horror their own. It isn't some abstracted thing they get to look back on. Not yet. It's here, now, in front of them, and they need to do something with it. I think it's interesting how adults can feel so warmly about the things that scared them as kids, and then also try to protect their kids from that exact experience. It's as if, on some level, you know how hard-won the comfort you have is, and you don't want kids to have to go through that discomfort themselves. But if I've learned anything from child lore, it's that childhood itself, that entire period of life, is just scary. And I don't think there's a single thing any adult can do about that. In the end, that's okay. The experience of childhood, the horror of it, doesn't last forever. In time, kids grow up. The world starts to make more sense, and things start to feel less scary. Someday, they'll look back on their own fears and laugh too. And I think that actually makes this strange, bizarre, unpredictable stage of life precious. I think the fear and the horror of it are important. Maybe what kids really need is just help. Someone to guide them through it safely. Someone to encourage them to meet the monster under the bed while it's still around. Okay, but what if you missed that opportunity? What if you're an adult now and you just don't feel that connected to your imagination anymore? What if it wasn't encouraged or fostered in your childhood, and now you just kind of feel adrift? This is Myla Goldberg. She's written multiple best-selling novels and has received not just the PEN Award, but the Carnegie Medal as well. She doesn't think it's too late. To her, inspiration is something you cultivate, not just something you have. And she has this amazing course called the Creative Writing Bootcamp where she teaches it in just that way. Along with practical advice on how to organize your thoughts and get started writing, she also teaches you how to find inspiration to begin with. In one lesson, she explains where ideas come from. In another, she basically tells you to go eavesdrop on people in public. One of my favorite lessons in the series, after you've spent some time reconnecting with your own imagination, is about branching out and writing what you don't know. It's honestly just such a fun course and a great way to start rebuilding your relationship with your own imagination. If you want to give it a try, it's available for free through our sponsor, Skillshare. You've probably seen 1,000,001 videos sponsored by Skillshare at this point. I get it. But honestly, that's because it works. Obviously, I'm on there for writing, but you can find pretty much anything there. There are courses on coding, music, graphic design, business, photography. If you can name it, someone's made a Skillshare course about it. It's really just a network of creatives helping other creatives. They're sharing their skills, one creator to another. If you're a writer looking for inspiration, I really can't recommend the Creative Writing Bootcamp enough. It's just very, very good. I hope you'll go check it out. It'll cost you literally nothing if you go now, because the first 500 people who use our link or scan this QR code will get access to the course and everything else Skillshare has to offer for free. That's one whole month of Skillshare and all it has to offer for absolutely no cost. If it doesn't turn out to be for you, cancel and never pay a dime. But at least give it a shot. I think you'll really love this course. Again, click the link in the description or scan the QR code to get started for free. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next week. Bye.